Hello everyone and welcome to the next video in our Characters of the Bible through the Alphabet. We are on to the letter R, and for R I've chosen to look at Rachel in the book of Genesis, chapters sort of 29 through to 35 in the book of Genesis. And it's a story of deceit, of power struggles, and I think it says a lot about what it meant to be a woman in those days. So the story is, you've got Jacob, who will become Rachel's husband. So Jacob is the son of Isaac, who of course is the son of Abraham, and Jacob has been very deceitful against his twin Esau, who is the older one, and has stolen his birthright and stolen the blessing that his father was going to give him, and made him very angry, and so he has run away, and he's going to go and stay with his mother's brother Laban, to get away from his father and his older brother who want to kill him. So Jacob is running away through the desert, and he comes across a well, and around the well are lots of shepherds. Probably women, but I don't know that, and they're stood around the well waiting, and Jacob says to them, why are you waiting here? It's getting hot. Why have you not watered all of your sheep and moved on? And they say, well, actually there's a stone on top of the well that is far too big and far too heavy to be easily moved, so we wait until everybody's here, and then we shift it. And in the distance there comes the heroine of our story. Rachel walks up with the flocks from her dad's flocks, and Jacob asks who she is, and it's Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his uncle. So this is his cousin, and he looks at her, and Rachel is beautiful, and he falls in love immediately. So he takes the stone off the well and waters all of her flocks for her, and says, look, I'm your cousin, I'm coming to come and stay with you, and goes back with her to her father's house. So her father's name is Laban, and then he's got two daughters, Leah the older one, and then Rachel, who Jacob is in love with. And Jacob stays with Laban for a month, and he looks after all of the sheep, and then Laban turns to him and says, now, you're my nephew, but you shouldn't really be working for me for free. What wages would you like? And Jacob knows immediately what he wants. He says, Rachel. And he strikes a bargain with Laban and says, I'll work for you for 7 years, and at the end of the 7 years I get to marry Rachel. And Laban agrees, and they are happy with that. It doesn't say whether or not Rachel was happy with that. She had very little choice in the matter, but that's what happens. So he works for 7 years, and at the end of the 7 years there's a big wedding and a big celebration. He probably drinks far too much, and the bride's got her face all in the veil, and they go off, and in the morning Jacob wakes up and finds that he's been tricked. He's married Leah, the daughter with the watery eyes, the weak eyes, and not the beautiful Rachel who he fell in love with. So he storms off to his uncle and now father-in-law, and says, look, Rachel, it's all about Rachel. She's the one I wanted. How have you tricked me? And Laban says, oh, in our culture you have to marry the older one before the younger one, but it's fine, you just wait a week, then you can marry Rachel and you can work for another 7 years to earn Rachel now that you've got Leah. So I mean, that set them up for a really good marriage, as I'm sure you can imagine. So a week later, Jacob finally marries Rachel and works for another 7 years for Laban to earn her. Now in those years, Rachel has no children, and Leah has 4 to begin with. Reuben, Simeon, Levi and Judah. You might notice them and recognise them as the tribes of Israel. Those are the first 4 in the tribes of Israel. And Rachel, she is the favourite wife. But we know that in this time and in this culture, children are everything. That is what gives you your status and your purpose and your meaning as a woman. And she hates seeing that her older sister has all of these boys and she doesn't have any. So she does what Sarah did before her, and she gets her maidservant and sends her off to Jacob. And her maidservant Bilhah has 2 children, Dan and Naphtali. So Leah sees this and thinks, hang on a minute, I'm missing a trick here. So Leah finds her maidservant Zilpah and sends her off to Jacob, and Zilpah has 2 boys, Gad and Asher. And still, Rachel is the favourite. Leah has had 4 children, Bilhah has had 2 children, Zilpah has had 2 children. This part of life that's supposed to give them status and recognition, and it hasn't. And Rachel, childless Rachel, is still that favoured bride. Leah has 2 more children, Isaac and Zebulun, and she thinks, finally, with six boys, and then she has a daughter, Dinah, surely now he will honour me and love me for what I've been able to give him. And it doesn't happen. And finally, at a point when hope is sort of lost for Rachel, she has a boy. She has Joseph. And we know the story of Joseph. His brothers are jealous of him. He gets a multicoloured coat and he gets sold off into Egypt and ends up saving the Israelites years later. Well, at this point, Jacob has been working for Laban for 20 years, far longer than he was supposed to for the 2 brides. And he says, look, it's time that I go and look after my own stuff. I've been looking after your flocks for long enough. And he makes a deal to split the flock and to leave. And he's not sure that Laban's going to let him go, so he sneaks off in the middle of the night, taking the entire family with him. And Rachel, who I always think of as the sort of the good one, she wasn't part of the deceit really, you know, her groom was almost stolen from her and then she had no children, it's not really her fault. She plays a trick on her father. She goes into his house and finds the statues and things that he has as gods, and she steals them and she hides them on the camel that she sat on. So they run off and Laban chases after them and searches through all of their stuff saying, look, you've stolen from me, not only have you snuck off, you've also stolen from me. And he searches everywhere, but Rachel makes an excuse not to come off her camel and he can't find them, and the family go back to Canaan to go and see Esau and to be reunited with their family. And Rachel gets pregnant again with Benjamin, but dies in childbirth. So Rachel's life is a bit tumultuous. She's given in marriage to a man that she was expecting to marry for 7 years, but then was tricked out of, at a time when she's set up against her sister in that marriage. She's earned and won by the work that Jacob has done. She's dragged away from her home by her husband and feels cheated of her inheritance by her father, and so has to steal it and hide it to take it along with her. And that one thing that's supposed to give her such status and such importance, bearing that child, is the thing that takes her life. It is a bizarre sort of soap opera of the Bible, these families sort of intertwining and trying to work out good relationships. And I think the thing that I thought about most when reading this story is, who's in control? For Rachel, as a child, her father was in control. He chose who she married. And then her husband was in control. He was the one who set her, really, apart from Leah and Zilpah and Bilhah, and caused all the problems between them. And then her father wouldn't give her inheritance. And then Jacob took them away to another land. I wonder how much say Rachel really had in her life, and actually even more so for her maidservant, who experienced a lot of that, but was given to Jacob against her will. Life in the Old Testament for some of these women was really hard. And I think it can still be hard in today's world. There's so much judgment on appearance, so much value given to us by what we look like, whether we have strong eyes or nice hair, or whether we dress well. There is a sort of status sometimes given to families. I have a lot of friends who have got young children, and they often say to me, well, I can't because I'm a mother, but you'll have time. Because that's the sort of expectation. is that if you don't have a family, then surely you're totally free. But then there are some mothers who have the opposite experience. And they say, as soon as I became a mother, people forgot about my academic achievements, people forgot about my ability to do work and my job, and all they saw was this mother. Because part of our identity and part of our status in society seems to be determined by whether or not we have children as women. That may be the case for men too. I'm sorry, I'm not a man, I don't know. I wonder what it is in our life that really is in control of our identity, and what it is in our life that gives us status. You know, Joseph and Benjamin, they were miraculous children. It was the same for Rachel as it had been for Sarah, as it had been for Hannah, as it had been for Rebecca. They had spent their lives desperately wanting children and not getting them, and then getting them in their old age. And then those children that they got in their old age ended up doing incredible things for God. And I think maybe that was the point. Maybe that distance, that waiting and it not coming, made it really obvious when they came that this is a gift from God. This child to you is a blessing, as all children are, but let's really highlight that it's God who's provided this child to you. I wonder how much of our status and our identity is given to us by God, and given to us at times when we felt like we haven't had it. Maybe those low points in life where we think, gosh, people must think I'm rubbish. Gosh, people must look at my life and judge it as a bit worthless or a bit valueless when I compare it to the people around me. And maybe when we come out of those moments and we see the way that God blesses us, maybe that's the time that it really strikes us that God is in control and that He loves us and that His plan for us is good. Rachel had a hard life, but her legacy was incredible. The legacy of her children changed the entire history of Israel, and still we're learning about her today. You may be feeling like life is a bit difficult. You may be feeling a bit useless, like poor Rachel sitting for 7 years not being able to marry the man who wants to marry her. You may be feeling a bit like Leah, who's forced into a situation where she just feels like second best. But God has got an incredible purpose for each one of us. I am absolutely sure of it. Each of our lives has great value and great worth, and it matters. And it doesn't come from what we look like, or what we can achieve, or whether or not we're married, or whether or not we have a big family. It just comes from God, and it is a free gift. Our value is free from Him, and we can just accept it. So let's pray. God, I thank You that in life there are things that are outside of our control, and that when we experience them, Lord, however hard it is, it gives us an opportunity to see that You are in control, that You, the God of love, the almighty, powerful God, cares about us. Lord, I just pray for anybody watching who may be feeling a little bit valueless, a little bit like their life is out of their own control, maybe feeling like they're not able to get on with anything that's worthwhile. Lord, please give us patience when we feel like that. Help us to know that Your plan for us is bigger than what we can see. Help us to feel the value and the worth that You pour into our lives. And help us to serve You in whatever that looks like, however different or similar it is to the people around us. Amen. Well, it was nice to see you again. Have a lovely rest of your week. I'll see you on Sunday if you're watching this before Sunday the 5th of July, because I'm preaching. So I'll see you then. Bye.